So if you think from Google's perspective, what is your goal? You want to provide the most possible people the best results so that you can get them on there. Because one, you're building an audience now, you're becoming and staying the top search engine. And then two, you want to sell ads. So how do you combat that, right?
So you mentioned how a Google asset gets shut down and a major portion of revenue is just blocked off from a business. How do companies rely less on Google?
The reality is, if you're a local business.
Welcome to the 6th episode of Expanding Local. Today I'm here with Andrew Lee Jenkins. He has a big track record. He is the founder of Catalyst RVA Marketing, a digital marketing agency for home service contractors. He's also the co-founder of Agency Mastermind, a community where agencies can learn the secrets of building profitable, ethical marketing agencies. And he's also the moderator of the Google SEO Mastermind, which is, I'm sure you've heard of it, it's a massive Facebook group. And he's also the host of the Should I Learn This Week podcast. So, Andrew, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Could you give a brief introduction, kind of who you are, how you got to where you're at, and all that good stuff?
Sure. I'll give you the short version. I got my engineering degree, started working in the engineering field about 12 years ago when I got out of college, and very quickly I kind of hated the whole engineering thing. And for the longest time I've tried, different get-rich-quick schemes, and for a little while I was a cult leader. I've done all kinds of crazy stuff, and I think that gave me a little bit of interesting insight as I entered the marketing field, kind of by accident through helping out somebody with their website build. I like learning new stuff. I was like, I'll figure out how to do this website thing. And that spiraled out of control and turned into me starting marketing agency. And since, January of last year was when I went full-time and started scaling my agency.
Perfect. And what's the reason behind the name Catalyst RVA? What does that mean?
So we go back to the cult. So I was given a nickname, Catalyst, when I was inside of this because I helped grow this group of people. When I left, I didn't leave on good terms because I kind of realized what was going on, and I was like, F this. So the name of my marketing agency is sort of an FU to the guy that's running that other deal. And then RVA is that's Richmond, where I'm located.
Nice. Awesome. And so your agency, I see you talk a lot about ethical marketing, and I think that's something that not a lot of agency owners talk about, and not a lot of home service business owners really, they don't really understand how bad the agency land is that we operate in. Can you explain how agencies are taking advantage of home service businesses?
Yeah, this is like a 14-hour workshop, weekend event that we could sell tickets for. But the issue kind of stems from, in my opinion, the fact that anybody can start a marketing agency or start doing some kind of freelancing work. The barrier to entry is basically owning a laptop. I mean, I guess technically you could go to the library and just use the computer there if you want. But, local business owners, the problem that they have is that they're really, really good at doing the thing that they're really, really good at doing, right? They don't know the whole marketing thing, and it's very prevalent inside of home services specifically, because a lot of times they don't lean more into that heavily, technology involved type personality. They're like swinging a hammer. So they don't know as much when somebody is saying something that sounds fancy, but is at the end of the day mostly bullshit. And then you kind of compound that by the fact that, like we said, it's easy to get into marketing, and everyone else out there, you have this whole other layer where there's the marketing influencer that's trying to sell people getting into marketing, because you've heard the old adage of, don't chase gold, right? Sell the shovels to the people chasing gold. And that's what a lot of people are doing. So it's a big mess. It sucks. It's very difficult to weed through the BS. And I think if you talk to pretty much any business owner, you're going to have at least one terrifying and insane story that you're going to get related to some kind of marketing agency experience.
And can you go into some of those stories? Because I know you've had clients who dealt with like, really scammy, shady agency owners. I've been through the same thing. Can you walk through kind of how an agency may have affected one of your clients before you started working with them?
Sure. Yeah, one of the most common things that I see is web designers will sell something, and this is very innocuous. Web designers will sell something and they will say a website is SEO optimized, and at the end of the day, most of the time it is not. There are while there is no manual to SEO, Google's put up like a white paper sort of thing with some guidelines, but there's no like, hey, this is exactly how you have to do everything. There are basic principles and foundations and things that you can follow and say in good conscience, hey, this website was designed with SEO in mind. Most of the time, what I'm seeing is clients are paying some kind of insane price for a website because again, they don't know any better. They don't understand it shouldn't cost you $50,000 to make a website for a local pressure washer. um, there's just this huge gap. So a number of times this past year, I have taken on clients that have spent significant amounts. In one case, I think it was $15,000 for a website that, in my opinion, was not only not SEO optimized, but it was incredibly basic, using a technology stack or set of plugins and builders and all this kind of stuff that I thought was kind of junky. And that's a whole other topic. But yeah, that was just one case. There was another case where somebody spent, I believe, $8,000 for a website. And again, the website was not ranking. It was not showing up in Google searches. At the end of the day, if you're, a contractor and your goal is to make money, a flashy website is awesome. But if you don't send traffic to it that's qualified and turns into paying clients, then what's the point, right?
Yeah. The scary part about that is like you mentioned $8,000 and they didn't really get results. And I feel like that's like the lower end of the
Yeah.
scamming that goes on. Like
Maybe.
that the person that spent $8,000 for a bad website almost like got off easy.
Yeah, and it's tough too because like I don't want to say that the $8,000 website was a scam, right? I want to say the fact that you told the client this website was going to rank as a scam,
Yeah.
because like how do you put a price on something that was a creative asset that you design and build? I don't know. It's whatever you agree upon with the client at the end of the day. Like if they think it looks like $8,000 worth of work, then send it. But it's the it's not always the tactic when it comes to marketing that I have a problem with because there are what we call white hat things, just to simplify, safer things long term that you can do that work and that you can do that don't work. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's what we would call black hat or more dangerous things that you can do that may work and may not work. So you can exist anywhere in that spectrum. I think that if you're going to venture over here into the risky areas, you just need to explain that to the client so they have an idea of what you're doing and the potential risks long term. That's kind of my issue.
Yeah. And so what do you think are the biggest mistakes home service business owners might be making on their website? Like when it comes to either their agency doing it or if they're doing it themselves, what should home service business owners be doing to optimize their website and not just make it look pretty, but also turn it into a website that gets traffic and actual leads and serves your underlying business goals?
Sure, that's a really really good question. The first thing that I always go back to is you have to have a good solution for tracking. If you don't know how you're modifying, tweaking, changing things, and how that's affecting the results, then you can't really attribute anything that you're doing back to the changes that you've made. So the first thing that I would recommend to any business owner, whether they're actively doing the marketing themselves, they're working with someone else, is get some kind of tracking solution in place. At the bare minimum, you could use something like Google Analytics. It is less and less user friendly, and it will continue to be so most likely as time goes on. But there's a ton of videos on YouTube that you can use to set them up. Basically, the principle is you just add a tracking tag, and then you can use Google Analytics as well as Search Console, and you can kind of look at the data that's going on behind the scenes. So once you have traffic in place, One of the biggest things that I see as a mover of websites in general is the content that's on the page. Google's got a lot of things they can look at. One of the main things that they can look at that you can influence easily just by looking at it is the content on the page. And that is headers. So those things that are typically, if you think back about taking notes when you were in school, you've got a topic on the page of your notes, then you've got subtopics, and then you've got some actual bullet points and stuff. So those main topics at the top of the page, those typically we look at those as an H1 header. And ideally you have one. Again, none of these are hard and fast rules. I've seen websites with 0 H1s that rank. I've seen websites with 6 H1s that rank. But that overarching topic, that's your H1 tag. And then subtopics are typically what we would call synonyms or similar words or inverse words. So those are things in your header. So if your page is about pressure washing, some of your other headers should include things like pressure washer company, pressure washing reviews, pressure washing testimonials. I mean, different variations basically of your main topic of that page. And then the body content should reflect that as well. So that's the biggest thing that you can do as a small business owner is make sure the page content makes sense. Make sure that this is a little bit more of an advanced thing, but make sure that you do what I would call an overlap analysis before you start building out your website pages, or if you've already built them out, do an overlap analysis and make sure you don't have two pages that are competing for the same term. Because what you as a business owner look at as a single service or separate services doesn't always align with what Google looks at. So it's kind of like a give and take. So like, do you have clients that are residential and commercial service offerings, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at inside of Search Console, the residential pages and commercial pages, if you haven't split them up, or if you have split them up, you'll notice something different. A lot of times the commercial pages will show queries for residential terms and vice versa, because in most industries, Google doesn't separate a service into commercial and residential variations like we naturally want to as people. So website structure and then making sure you have content on the pages is my bread and butter. Like that's the foundational stuff. If you do that right and then build your brand, eventually you will rank.
How far can you go with the cannibalization of pages? Because I know some people recommend that you have a location service page that's for a specific service. So drain clearing in Portland, drain clearing in Gresham, different little towns. Are those going to cannibalize each other? Is that good practice to have two cities that are super close together for a specific service? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a good question. And typically what I will do is I will have a set of services. So when I do keyword research, I'm not just doing keyword research for services. I'm also doing keyword research based off locations. And because of where I am at, it's fairly easy because I try to take clients locally in my specific area. So I already know the locations most of the time. But typically when you go onto Google Maps, if you look, a lot of times people want to use neighborhoods and they want to make thousands of pages for neighborhoods. But a lot of times if you search those things, neighborhoods aren't something that Google ranks. And this is kind of it's kind of hard to explain, but if you search for, your service and then add neighborhood at the end of it, if you look in the search results, a lot of times they're going to have your service and then some city that is close to that neighborhood. So what that tells you is that neighborhood is not something that Google is ranking. That could change. 5 years from now, that could completely change. And what I'm saying now means absolutely nothing, which is why it's important to do SEO on a continual basis. But the idea typically that I would promote for people is go into Google Maps. And if you search a location, you'll be able to see if Google views that as a city and what Google views the city limits as. Because if you search your city, it's going to show you a red outline on Google Maps a lot of times. and then it's not going to look at anything like what you think it's going to look like. And if you're not in that, then that page is less likely to rank if you're creating it for that specific location. So that's kind of how I research everything. I'll look at the areas where the little red lines are showing up for each big city. I'll chunk everything out into smaller cities. And if you're really, really excited about putting neighborhoods somewhere on your website, then just bullet point list the neighborhoods on that city page if you really, really want to.
And so going into 2025, obviously a lot has changed. And like the SERP page, it's like you have local services ads, then you might have like one or two PPCs, and then you might have a sponsored Google business profile. And then finally you get to organic Google business profiles. And then you scroll down a little bit more, and then maybe there's a few organic pages, but now it's like Yelp, Angie's. Like, how important are organic web pages going to be in 2025? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so when I think of what's going to happen moving forward, what direction is Google going to go in, and I use this in most stuff, most decisions or things I'm thinking about is like just switch places. So if you think from Google's perspective, what is your goal? You want to provide the most possible people the best results so that you can get them on there. Because one, you're building an audience now, you're becoming and staying right the top search engine, and then two, you want to sell ads, right? So that's why. Sorry for my my little,
Happy
forgot
birthday,
my
man.
little hand signals set off stuff. So if your first thing is you want to bring people in, and the second thing is you want to sell ad space, you obviously see what you're seeing with the SERPs now, where they're basically loading them with ads, and in that same vein, you're also competing with the fact that everybody now has access to consumer grade AI tools, and they're blanketing the internet with nonsense and just dumping garbage. So how do you combat that? Right? You have to figure out what signals can you use to rank pages that are based less and less off of just simple on-page stuff, the foundational stuff I mentioned, and some of the things that we're looking at noticing are backlinks, improving your backlink profile, making sure that you're getting links, and those are essentially when one website points back to your website. There's a ton of different ways to do this, and that's kind of inspired one of the projects I did a couple of weeks ago, which is like a branded search newsletter. And there's two different types of tips in there. Some of the tips that are in that newsletter help people generate links back to their website in their local area. And then some of the tips help them generate branded search, which is the second thing that we are noticing. Across the board with all the different properties that I have access to, everybody that's getting a lot of branded search, meaning someone is going into Google and typing in the name of their business and searching for their company, those people are continuing to increase in rank. And the people that don't have that, they're stagnating or they're declining. So those are the things that I would focus on moving forward is you need to figure out how to get branded search, which, oh my God. You need to figure out how to get branded search.
This episode is very immersive with it.
I can do so many, I can do like fireworks and all kinds of stuff, lasers.
We'll do that at the end, the fireworks.
So you need to get more branded search. And you need to just continue to increase your backlink profile. And I want to preface that by saying, don't just get a million links from random places, right? The best links that you can get, if I had to rank them, the first one would be local links. If you're a local business, getting links from your local community, think of sponsoring sports teams, getting a link from their website back to yours. Think of donating money to a local college and starting a scholarship fund and getting a link back to your website. Chamber of Commerce, local stuff, and then industry stuff. So if you're landscaping, getting a link on a landscaping related website, maybe it's a publication, certification, any of that. And then from there, there's a gap. There's a big gap. And then it's other links. So if you're a local business, those are the things you want. Get published in your local news stations by doing something cool in the community and telling them about it. I mean, there's a million different ideas, and a lot of those are in that branding newsletter, I think.
One of the things that I've noticed during my time in marketing is the level of difficulty it is to rank on like super competitive keywords. And it's always like Google is going to prefer the company with more backlinks, more juice being sent to either that page or their website as a whole. How important is link building and generating backlinks compared to the other parts of digital marketing? I feel like that's kind of more of like an organic SEO, maybe more long-term play. But how much emphasis should business owners be putting on generating good links?
So this is a this is a tough one because if you're trying to rank different activities, it depends a lot on the situation and specific industry that you're in, and even where you're at in business. Um, you know, for somebody that's brand new, and I'll give you this as an example, because a lot of times what happens is people are new, they don't feel like they have the budget for marketing, and this is probably the more common case versus people that do have a huge budget. When you're new, you need cash flow, right? So maybe focusing on backlinks right up front is not the move. Like sponsoring, getting one link to your website by sponsoring one sports team, that's not necessarily going to help you from an SEO standpoint. But it is going to put your logo and your brand in front of the local community. And that, I think, is where the benefit comes from. If you're talking about backlink building, another way that I would word that is kind of community building, because these opportunities a lot of times come to you just through being active in your local community, which in itself is an effective marketing strategy. Like a lot of the clients, pretty much every client that I have now has been a referral. So as a marketing agency, I've taken a totally different strategy than most people, and I still laugh when people are saying, hey, if your website's not ranking, you're bad at SEO. My website has had, it's not going to ever rank because I have tested every possible thing on it that I could before I use it on a client. I've nuked my website a million times. So it's not going to happen. But the goal is to figure out where is your target audience and then get in front of those people. So when you're new and you don't have a huge marketing budget, use your time, right? So get in front of people at local networking events. All of these different things are going to contribute to building branded search. So they're going to have a knock-on effect, and they're going to increase your website, the chances of your website ranking down the line anyways. So that's kind of what's prompted my change with some of my my offer is, instead of trying to say, hey, I'm going to do SEO, we've got this piece figured out, there's a repeatable process that we've done that's worked, that's awesome. But truthfully, if you're trying to grow a brand, you got to figure out how to be in front of everybody everywhere, especially if you're home services. And so that's kind of what's tweaked our offering specifically into some of these other areas, I guess. So yeah, my recommendation is go become a household name in your community. Start very small, very, very small town, and move out from there. It's more time consuming, it's slower, it's not as exciting, but it works.
Start a cult.
Start a cult. That's exactly
So,
right.
what is the one thing you think home service businesses should be focused on if they want to get results in a short period of time? Like, let's say a month. Like they want to spend a month, focus on one thing. Like, what is that one thing that's going to drive results in a short period of time?
Customer experience. And that's not something that most agencies sell. Like the amount of business owners that I talk to that I ask, have they sat down and figured out how to tweak their process so that it becomes a better experience for their clients? None of them do, right? They're like, nah, they call me and then I show up and I do the estimate and then they pay me and that's it. We talk to them again next year when they need their stuff done again. I'm like, well, there's a lot of steps in there, right? So again, swap places. Let's say you're Sally and your husband is at work and you're calling, you have a contractor that's coming to your house and you're nervous because you're like, you don't know what to expect. You just got a new house. You have no idea how this service is supposed to work. You don't know who the person is that's going to come into your house to do this. Like, there's a lot of opportunities to set this person at ease and make sure the experience is really, really positive
Yeah.
so that when they're done, now you get the review and they tell everybody about you and they explain how you set, how, you as a business owner set them at ease and all these other things that are the intangible things that make your business a referable business. That type of stuff is something anybody can sit down and think about. As long as you're able to switch places with people and understand their potential concerns, like you can do that tomorrow and make your experience incredible, so that every single time you go into somebody's home, that person turns into a raving fan and refers you to 5 other people.
And so, what kind of software or tools are you relying on to, or which ones would you recommend home service business owners use to make customer experience better and kind of automate that process?
So there's a million different tools that, for most cases, do the same thing. Um, I personally use Go High Level and customize that, but I don't think I think that gives you the most options realistically on how you can create an awesome experience, but I don't think it's as user friendly for you as the contractor. You as the business owner always, which is a frustrating part because it is such a cool product. But most softwares allow you to do the basic stuff. And if you're at least doing the basic stuff, you're sending appointment reminders, you have an official booking system. It's not just like, you're not writing stuff down on your yellow legal pad and forgetting to call people back, like all that. So you've got things like Jobber. I mean, there's a million different softwares. I think Jobber, Service Titan are ones that I hear a lot about, and that some of my clients use. But just having something in general and setting it up properly, the setting it up properly part is probably the more important part. Because I'm sure you've probably had this before. You've gotten an appointment reminder, and then you've gotten another appointment reminder, and then you've gotten another appointment reminder, and you're like, I've gotten 53 appointment reminders. Am I going to get one every 5 minutes? Or you unsubscribe and they send you other stuff. Like, just make sure it's set up properly and test it. Like, it's not in here, but I have a whole separate cell phone with a fake human being on it that I use to test out all the automations to make sure that everything works properly.
That's awesome. So, like automation, I feel like home service businesses definitely underutilize it, but you might disagree with me here. For reviews, I think there should be a process for the technician to, like in person, face to face, right after the job is done, be like, hey, it would mean a lot if you could write me this review. Maybe they have a QR code. Maybe they just like pull it up on their phone. Like, I think they should stand there and wait for the customer to like finish writing the review and then like send them pictures to add to the review because those add more points. Do you think that there's ever going to be a way to automate that has a higher success rate than a technician? Or do you think that should just be a face-to-face interaction at the end of the job? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so it depends on the niche. Some people service delivery, like when you do delivery, you are actually in front of the client, and yes, that's never going to be a you can't beat that, because what happens is if you've done a really good job, you've had a really positive experience, the person's already excited to leave you a review, and now they have positive peer pressure, like you're standing there in front of them. They're going to be like, yeah, I want this guy to leave now. I'll leave you a review, sure. And, so you're probably not going to beat that as far as effectiveness. I do think that there are things that you can do to make review campaigns more effective after the fact. But you also have to ride a thin line with the FTC and Google's terms of services. There's a lot of things that I see people doing that are technically illegal and technically breaking Google's terms of services, both of which could get your business removed from Google and get you FTC fines, which are not ideal things to happen if you're a small business owner. So I think that your best bet is, yes, do reviews in person if possible. And then right below that would be you manually texting somebody from your personal cell phone Bonus points if it's an iPhone because people love blue bubbles. And then right below that would be automating it. And then down at the bottom is just not asking for reviews because that one does not work. I promise you will not get good reviews regularly if you do that one.
What do you think is more important, the number of five-star reviews or the frequency of five-star reviews on a Google business profile?
The frequency. I would call it review velocity if I was talking to my nerdy marketing friends. But regular reviews are better than having a perfect 5-star rating, in my opinion. I've had clients freak out after getting one negative review. And a lot of times, what happens if you get a negative review, if you go read it, the average consumer reads that review and they're like, this person is effing insane. Like, what happened here? Especially if you respond politely back to the person and don't try to argue with them. Yeah, the average consumer doesn't care if you have one negative review. In fact, most people go look for that review to see how you handle conflict. And then once they realize you handle it well, you're like, all right, cool, let's go with this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I would say regular reviews are more important.
And how do you think home service business owners should make sure that they are getting frequent reviews on their Google business profile?
The biggest thing is just ask, man. Like, I mean, I've got clients that do really well with this, and they regularly ask reviews because they listen when I've explained, hey, this is really important. And then I've got other ones that are not placing a huge importance on it, and they've gotten really lucky up to this point that they've got a strong brand and they're still dominating Google Maps without it. But if you're talking to an average consumer and they find you organically, right, and you've been in business for 30 years and you got 12 reviews, well, that's a problem. I look at a company like that and I say, if they've been in business for 12 or for 30 years and they've got 12 reviews, then something weird's going on here. This doesn't give me warm, fuzzy feelings. So it just, almost every marketing question can be answered by saying it depends. But generally speaking, like, you have to explain how important it is to the client to get the reviews. Because in my opinion, that's turning into, like we said earlier, a very, very important, I don't want to say ranking factor because I think that's like speaking like I actually know. I would say it's an important signal to Google that you are a strong brand to recommend to people. So, yeah, I talked to somebody the other day and I was like, hey, if we do nothing else this year, and the only thing that we do is focus on getting a review process in place that works, that right there alone will be all we need to, like, I could do nothing. You can keep paying me if you want, but we could stop. And if we just get this review process in that works, you'll continue to rank because they don't have a ton of competition. It's not a crazy niche. And they're already doing well on maps, like I said, but the reviews are vital, and it's just becoming, it's one of those things you just have to impress the importance on people and kind of follow up and be like, hey, look, we're not getting reviews. How can I help? Give me some people to text, like, just annoy them. Business owners get distracted, right? We all do.
And how important do you think it is to take reviews from external platforms and put them on your website? And how do you do that?
I use a service called Trust Index. Basically, it aggregates your reviews from a bunch of different platforms, and they will extort you for money if you want to add a new platform that's not on there. Just you can pay them, and they'll build it for you, which is cool.
I
I think
didn't
it's
even
only
know
like
that.
$500 too. So I almost did that for a couple of different clients that had, like, sort of niche specific review sites. But Trust Index is a great investment, especially if you're an agency owner. I think you can get an unlimited plan for like $300 or $400 or whatever. It adds a little widget, and they'll automatically update. So if you get a review on this platform or that platform, it's going to automatically add it to your website. Typically, I am focused on Google reviews specifically because I feel like those move the needle the most. That being said, I don't think it's bad to also get reviews in other places. If you're the way that I do it for my personal agency, I help people across the United States and in other countries The only reviews that go to my Google profile are reviews from people that are here in Richmond, Virginia, or in my service area, and every other review goes to my Facebook platform. So I would say the one thing to think about when you are sending reviews to a Google profile is make sure that the reviews are coming from people that are in your service area. Like if I get a review from Florida, it's not helping me, and it's a 50-50 chance of it actually even sticking. So,
Oh no. I on
well,
my profile I have reviews from everywhere but Las Vegas. So
are you serious? Send those to your Facebook.
yeah, I didn't even really think about that, but
If
you were
so,
just
you're technically the terms of service for the Google profile is your service area is allowed to be 2 hours from your location.
oh no.
So this isn't something a lot of people talk about or probably know a ton about, but there's a sort of like a trust score with each Google business profile. And the reason suspensions and things like that get triggered is you're taking actions that you're batting outside of your league, so to speak. And so doing things that increase that trust score allow you to have more freedom. One of those things is making changes to the profile if you do need to make them with a local guide account. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do. So staying within that 2 hour range when you're getting reviews is another thing that just builds more strength and more trust in that profile that allows you a little bit more freedom. And I mean, you could probably argue that if there's a higher trust score to that profile, that it's more likely it's going to rank also.
Can you go into how home service businesses can optimize their Google business profile? I wanted to ask more there, but I feel like that's a good question.
So fill it out properly and completely. Make sure you have services added. Make sure your primary category is set up correctly. One of the things that I think people underestimate is the categories and how they affect the specific things that your profile will rank for. To just give you an example, and this changes, so this is something you want to continue to look at. I had a client that was offering sewer scoping services in addition to his home inspections, right? So he's home inspector. He does sewer scoping also as a standalone and as an add-on to the home inspections. So what has happened is, it's probably 2 months ago, Google reshuffled some things, and his primary category and the only category he had on his profile was home inspector. I believe in not like just chucking the whole freaking kitchen sink into someone's profile. Like hone in on the things that you want to as much as you can. So we use grids to track keyword rankings, and he was starting to slowly increase rank with the sewer scoping, having only home inspector as his category. And then maybe 2 months ago, it just fell off the map completely. And I don't like to have like a knee-jerk reaction to anything when it comes to SEO. My clients know that. I kind of lean more on the conservative end because I'm trying to make sure that their stuff long-term is not put in any potential risk. So I left it alone, let it simmer, see what happened. And again, it had fallen off completely. So when I went to do some research after those 2 months, I realized that Google had restructured that keyword sewer scoping so that it no longer fell under home inspector. And the basic way that you do that is you can download a plugin that shows you what people's categories are, go to Google Maps, type your service, and look for pattern. So we rearranged, we added a drainage contractor onto that client's as a second category, and boom, now his stuff a week later is starting to green out the map again. So one of the things that you need to make sure that you have set up properly is make sure that your business name is correctly done. Don't stuff it with keywords unless it's part of your actual business name and your branding. If you do that and it's not, you're likely to get somebody like myself that will recommend it not be that way and change it. So don't cheat the system. If you do want to cheat the system, do it legally with the DBA. And then second, make sure that your primary, secondary categories are correct. And then the last thing is just make sure the profile is full and active. People can argue all day with me about the effectiveness of Google profile posts. They can argue, having this thing here or sending links to this profile or sending links to your reviews or all kinds of weird stuff that I hear people doing. But the big movers I would focus on are those three things. Fill it out, make sure your title is correct, or your business name is correct, and then have your primary and secondary categories done. The rest of it's just build your website so that it matches and mirrors and reinforce. Like, my big thing today is reinforce brand over and over and over, because if you do that, it almost negates, not completely, but it almost negates the work that someone's doing from an SEO standpoint. Like, go in Google and type in plumber in your city, and then go look at how fucked up their website is. I promise they're still ranking. You don't always have to do things by the book or by what your favorite YouTube or internet influencer is saying is the right way.
Do you think Google is ever going to crack down on, I don't even know if it would be considered cracking down, but the DBAs on Google business profile names, where like you have a DBA that's like John's roofing, like roof replacement, roof repair. Like the DBA says that. Do you think they're ever going to like say, no, you can't use a DBA as a way to stuff keywords?
I don't think so. I mean, it's the legal name of the business at that point. So there's nothing they can argue with. From my perspective, I don't think you ever have to worry about that as long as you follow the legal channels. I mean, I think if you have a DBA and then you don't actually do it properly so that the rest of your bills are in that name and the rest of, like, it has to legitimately be your business. And for those of you, if you're listening to this, that you're going to like, oh, I'm going to go change my name to like plumber near me, we do blah, 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 all this other stuff. Make sure you change like everything, like your bank accounts, everything have to be done properly, because Google will request that information. Yeah. And if you're trying to cheat the system, they're going to not let you or do something worse.
They need a lot of information too. Like when you do get flagged for like cloaking or whatever they call it, keyword stuffing, like you got to have zip files of like all the documents, like IRS forms. Like you're not just going to be able to send them a DBA and be like, yeah, like this is my DBA. Like you need to change everything.
Everything exists on a scale. So like you can play squeaky clean or you can play really dirty. And the further you go over here, the harder it gets, just like everything else, right? So you can win on this end and you can win on this end, especially if you're using somebody that's had some experience and they kind of know the tricks, I guess, that people try to pull. That's one of the benefits of being able to lean on somebody that's had some marketing experience.
So when it comes to home service, you kind of mentioned black hat and white hat earlier. Are there any black hat strategies or methods that you think home service business owners should be doing?
So this is going to be my perspective, because again, I think that it's more important for longevity than it is for a quick win. But again, some people like to play a little bit faster and looser and a little bit more black hat, I guess. That's fine. I don't think I would. It's the way that I classify black hat too. This is another thing that's important, because everybody has a different kind of perspective on what they say as black hat and what's not. I classify black hat as something that it has an inherent potential risk to the client's properties long term, and that risk is elevated. Like, is building backlinks or buying backlinks, is that something that's allowed? No. Technically not. But the likelihood of that resulting in any kind of issue for you ever long term is almost negligible. Now, you renting backlinks on a PBN, which is a public blog network. PBN used to be private blog network. Those are harder to find now. Now it's a public blog network because people want to sell you links on them. So if you rent those links, most of the time Google knows what these networks are. So you're renting these links, and these people have sold you something, and now you're excited because you think you're going to rank. Well, yeah, you're going to get effed. So don't do that. CTR manipulation is, again, that's something that I would probably not recommend to a client. Uh, Not necessarily because it doesn't work, because it does. It absolutely works for a short period of time. And then you have an inherent potential risk of your property getting nuked and gone. Which, if you rely on Google and Google Maps specifically for a lot of your lead flow, well, that can bankrupt the business. So, yeah, I personally would say avoid anything that long term is going to come with some potential risk. And if you're a home service business owner, like just ask, like, hey, what is the process you're going to do to accomplish this? Like, as a business owner that's hiring a marketing agency, one of the most important things you can do is probably learn a little bit about marketing and understand what it is they're going to do so you can ask questions. You can weed out like 95% of the people that are bad actors just by knowing like 10 different questions and what they mean. Simply because most people aren't going to be able to answer them because they don't know what the hell they're doing. They watched a course on YouTube that said this is how you do marketing, and so they're just washing and rinsing and repeating. And when you ask them a question about marketing and they can't answer it, well, you have your answer that you need, right? You know this person's they don't know what they're doing. They're just copying something that their favorite YouTube influencer told them about this past week. So that's a long-winded way of answering that, I guess.
So you mentioned how like a Google asset gets shut down and a major portion of revenue is just like blocked off from a business. How do companies rely less on Google and more on, I don't know if you want to call it alternative advertising methods or brand building? How can they kind of like quote unquote de-Google themselves?
I don't think you're ever going to be able to completely de-Google yourself. But a lot of times people be like, I want to rank on this search engine. I want to do this. I want to show up in ChatGPT. Like, the reality is, if you're a local business, you rely on your local community. Like, go be in your local community. Go to sporting events. Host fundraisers for a cause that you care about. Do donation drives for things that are important to you. Like, it's the stuff that people used to do before the internet. Just actually do that again, because now there's less competition because people are lazy and they don't want to do it. And two, it still works and it's always going to work because people are humans and they want to buy from humans. Like, you existing on this little space over here on the internet is awesome and it can create lead flow. But at the end of the day, like, you're still dealing with your local community. And I think a lot of business owners get in this mindset of, I just want to do digital because it's going to be easier and it's going to take less time and it's going to be less, intrusive in my life and all this other stuff. And it's like, sure, it is. But the reality is there's entire industries that are existing and just now getting involved online. Like, you can run your business off of literally just referrals locally in your area and pay nothing for marketing if you really want to. You just got to be good at getting referrals.
You kind of talked about the like building of a personal connection and people want to buy from humans. Do you think video content can be a substitute for like face-to-face interaction? Do you think video content has a place for home service business owners?
Yeah, definitely. Just not on Facebook. Uh, the issue with social media platforms is you don't get to control the reach that you have most of the time. Even if people are on your friends list, you don't necessarily get your content only shown to your friends list. It goes all over the place. So what ends up happening is video content can be very, very effective. You just have to find a way to leverage and use it properly so that you can get in front of the people that are in your target audience and in your area. So maybe that's a television commercial, OTA stuff, so you can get ads on, like if you go to your local mall and look, you've got little like digital ads on there sometimes. I'm a big proponent because of my previous experience with photo and video. And I think that those are very underused assets for most home service business owners. If you look at a website, you'll see really awesome website a lot of time, and they've got cell phone photos on there, and they're all distorted and wonky because someone took the photo like this. And like, you can really level up your business by just hiring a professional photographer and paying somebody, $500 to come follow you around for a couple of hours and take a ton of photos of you and shoot a quick testimonial video or intro video or something.
And what types of videos, you kind of just touched on it, what types of videos should home service business owners be making, and which ones drive the most results?
So I haven't actually tested this, but if I'm thinking anecdotally, the things that I would like to see as a consumer is I would like to know who is going to come to my house. So anything that's going to show you, who's the owner of the company, what do they stand for, what's your motto. I have an engineering background like we talked about, so I might want to look at some of the cool stuff that you guys are going to use to, work on my things. And then testimonial videos are always going to be good. Anybody that can, talk good about you and share some perspective on you and kind of vouch for you is a good thing, because that's the credibility that you're trying to build. One of the things, and I just did this like 2 or 3 days ago on Facebook, is I posted a question asking for 3 words basically to describe myself. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to see publicly, how do people perceive me, right? And my quote unquote brand. What is my brand? And a lot of the things that I personally have kind of built as my pillars or important things, foundations for how I interact with people, are things that showed up in those responses. Sarcastic, direct, knowledgeable, ethical, honest. There's a million variations of honest.
I really
and
like the one that
transparent.
said Andrew Lee Jenkins.
Yeah, there were a couple people that thought they were funny. There was a smoker, a joker, and a midnight toker. But yeah, the main things that showed up in those responses fit specifically with the things that I like to put out there. And so figuring out what it is that you're putting out there and understanding how to put the right things out there about your brand that set people at ease and answer their questions or concerns is something you can definitely do inside of video. You just have to work with somebody that does video and can help you kind of plan out the feeling that you want people to have after watching your video versus, hey, I'm going to hire this guy that's got a nice camera that I found on Thumbtack because he's only going to charge me $40. Like, pay someone that knows what they're doing. And again, those are things that you can ask them, like, you want to have a discussion around the point of the video. You don't just want a service provider, you want a solution provider. And that's whether you're talking about marketing, video, email marketing, anything. You want solutions. You want to talk through solutions. And those solutions are a little bit more expensive than the service. But at the end of the day, the solution is what gets you paying customers.
Do you think local services ads is overrated or underrated in 2025?
I think it's the niche dependent. Because some of my clients are getting really, really good results, and some of them are frustrated using local service ads. Like, I have a lighting contractor, and technically the category that they need to sign up under is an electrician. And all they do is install landscape lighting. So they're going to get all kinds of ridiculous stuff through local service ads that has nothing to do with services that they provide. And now that you can't personally say, hey, this is not a qualified lead, you're relying on an automated system, they're going to end up losing money going through local service ads because they're going to get charged for stuff that they're not going to ever want to bid on or do. So yeah. You're kind of, I would recommend, and this extends to Yelp, Angie's List, all these other services, I would recommend testing. You need to set a marketing budget and you need to try stuff. Like, you need to understand that marketing is not you're going to nail it on the first try. Like, it's not just going to work in a month. You have to test things and you have to assess, and then you have to decide if you're going to tweak and if you're going to change. So like I hear people all the time making fun of business owners paying for like featured Yelps and things like that. And then I'll talk to somebody and that's all they're doing is they've got a featured listing on Yelp and they're getting clients hands over fist. Like, in marketing, there is no blanket answer. And that's one of the easiest things, in my opinion, to filter out somebody who's talking shit about marketing and who actually knows what they're talking about is they very rarely speak in absolutes. Like, because you can't. Nothing is applicable across every niche, every industry, every location. It just isn't. That's the only absolute.
100%. Way earlier in this conversation, you talked about Google Tag, and there's this nice little tool like Google Tag Checker. You can go to websites and see who has a tag or not. I feel like the biggest scam is buying a website and then the person who sets it up doesn't like put a tag on it. How can you explain how important just throwing a simple like Google Analytics tag using Google Tag Manager, however you want to do it, is for a website for your home service business?
Yeah, so this is a tough one because I've purposefully not put analytics tags on websites before. So you have to have something in place to track, and sometimes people aren't worried so much about traffic, specifically things from analytics. Like you can look at a lot of similar data that's inside of Search Console without having tracking stuff on the site, which can slow it down. And then at the same time, you may just want to track lead flow through forms. You may just want to track conversions, things that are turning into paying customers. The important thing is tracking something, like and having a strategy around what you're tracking and how you're improving it. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, just make sure you are tracking and you have a strategy. Most people, the problem is that they don't have a strategy, period. And they're just kind of shooting from the hip, I guess.
How important do you think a phone tracking software is for home service businesses?
Uh, I think that also depends on your strategy. So there, within Go High Level, there is an option to do cell phone tracking, and it's going to depend on how you're using and why you're using it. So like for ads, I always have a tracking number that I have set up specifically for that ad campaign, and that can be super helpful. But there's always it's a trade-off. You have this issue where everything that you do has a knock-on effect to something else. So if you put a tracking number on like an ad landing page or something like that, because you want to specifically track that one thing, well, if a customer calls that ad tracking number and then they want to get back in touch with you later, that's the number they're going to have, right? So there are ways that you can track things externally without using like a call rail or Go High Level or Twilio or all these different solutions, but you have to figure out holistically like what is your goal and understand the pros and the cons of going that route, and then make a decision and actually analyze the data. That's the second issue most people have is they'll gather data, and I've done this before too, but they'll gather data and then they won't actually look at it. Like, you can put heat maps on your ad landing pages using something called Clarity or Hotjar. And
I like Hotjar.
yep, if you don't actually go back and look at the data and make tweaks based off of it, well, what was the point of recording the data? So there's so many things you can juggle as a business owner. My recommendation generally moving forward into 2025 is start gathering data, find the things that actually move the needle, and ignore all of the other stuff. Like with moderating that Facebook group, people argue over the dumbest shit. Like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that, and I have to tweak my schema so I can do this, and they don't have headings on the page. And you're like, dude, focus on the things that actually move the needle and stop trying to do this other stuff that you probably are doing because it's uncomfortable to do the other thing. At the end of the day, you only got 24 hours. You probably are sleeping some of them, unless you've had a couple of cans of this. You have a set amount of time. Use it productively and attack the big things, and then come back and get the little crumbs that move things forward, kind of itsy bitsy pieces.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, we are coming up on an hour here. I'm really surprised that I did not have a stroke after uh, drinking this, but crossing my fingers.
You'll feel great. Days.
Awesome. So, where can people find more about you? Where do you want to send people to? I know you have like digital marketing services, you have a podcast, you're doing great work in a bunch of different places. Where should people find more about you?
Sure. Yeah. Find me on Facebook, Andrew Lee Jenkins. I believe it's facebook.com/Andrew Lee Jenkins. I put out a ton of content on there. I have a YouTube channel. You can find me on pretty much any major social media platform. We are taking clients locally, and if somebody is looking for help finding an agency, like I said, I have a coaching community, so if you can't find an agency and Will's not able to hook you up, we might be able to help you find somebody as well that's kind of working on a similar framework that we have that you can actually trust is not going to leave you up the river without a paddle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. It's good being here, man. Looking forward to catching up again.
Yeah, of course. Likewise. I definitely want to have you on again. This was a great conversation.
We'll talk for hours.